Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm KC Cowan, back for a Locked On Texas Tech special edition. This is when we turn the reins over to the audience. God help us, Chris. It's the Matador Mob Mailbag. We solicit questions from those of you out there within the Matador Mob, and you never let us down. We got a boatload to run through today, so let's waste no time in getting started. And Chris, I'm just going to get to the brass tacks, the subject that gets the people going this time of year. And this week, the most popular question by far, we had a question in this realm from Mason, from John, from Brian, from Colby, from Brian, from Zach. And if I missed a few, I apologize, but they want to talk portal. It was a hell of an experience through the first wave. And as you and I've kind of been talking about, there is a second wave to come of some variety, just not quite sure yet when it's going to break out. So they're asking about some of the latest targets, biggest wants or needs from a position standpoint. A lot of mentions of edge guys or maybe further additions along the offensive line. So can you give us an overview as we wrap up a week, hit another one, kind of where those things stand?
Yeah, and there's still plenty to be determined. I still think you're trying to sort out if anybody on your team is entering or has entered, because sometimes there's a delay in the process and before it gets out to the public and all those things. When everybody's got the 5 days after their bowl game and on and on. And then, obviously you have the playoff teams that their window is extended because of continuing to participate. So there's just all kinds of still moving parts, it feels like. But, there were some rumors out there about Isaac Smith, and I bring this up because it's important to contextualize kind of what we're talking about here. There were some rumors about Isaac Smith going to Oklahoma. Those were coming out of Oklahoma. I think some folks that cover Oklahoma, but also some folks close to Isaac's high school coaches. And I haven't seen an announcement yet. You aren't going to be surprised if he was just going to retire from football because of some of the injuries. I get if he may want to go close to home. He's already graduated, but at last check, he's still a Red Raider. But if he were to depart, I mean, that's what affects the number of edge guys that you maybe it goes from one to now you're looking for two. That's the reason I bring that up. And so there's how much of that is out there that you just are still trying to manage from a numbers standpoint or is unknown. But right now, at last check, you've got these are all edge guys in different sizes and shapes. I think this isn't like a cookie cutter version. That these guys are all a little bit different and would be utilized a little bit different. But there's one at UTEP, one at UTSA, and one at Tennessee that are on your radar. And I think one of is certainly, and maybe some are set to visit. I don't know if anybody can answer this question internally even or externally as we'll ponder it here, but are you taking one or two? You just taking, hey, we're going to take one of these guys would be the goal. Would we have room for two? I don't know the answer to that. I think you're still looking for wide receiver help, specifically speed would need to be the checks the box there. Maybe a slot, but somebody that can flat out run, and then preferably an older player. I think this is going to be one of those cases where if you look for a receiver, you don't want a 3 or 4 year guy. You would want a 1 year, maybe two, if and there's one still in the playoffs. Not going to go any further than that because I'll just leave it there. But still in the playoffs, and then there was because the junior college ruling the other day. There's a corner at I believe Nevada, however you say it, the Wolfpack trading spots with Jordan Brown, maybe. But that I think had some junior college years that was a senior this year, but guess what? He's not gonna grow, he's gonna have more time left because of the junior college ruling and all that. And I think that there's some interest in him, and he's a pure corner. I think he would be a 1-year guy, I think. And so, yeah.
Is that it?
For right now. For right now, it is.
For right now, as of this very minute. I'll check back with you maybe, I don't know, by the end of this episode to see what's changed.
And it's funny because so many of these guys, we don't know them. They're not. You're going to look them up like we are, and you ask certain people. But I will. Well, the corner in Nevada, he's an all league kid and all that. I did the UTSA player. It was funny. I had somebody reach out to me and say, "Hey, are we really on this kid?" I said, "That's the word." Like I don't offered or visiting or whatever it may be. And they were like, "I was down there. I've been around their team some. He's unbelievable looking." And I'm like, well, that makes sense. Checks the box because you haven't been unbelievable looking in a year or two, and that was as we talked about, it was a bit more noticeable versus Arkansas and the Colorados and the Baylors and some of those games that you played in recent weeks and months. And I think that is now trying to be fixed. And it's not about the way you look, but it's you need length, you need athleticism and size, and I think you're definitely trying to add that.
All right. Appreciate those thoughts and appreciate those questions, portal related, from those of you out there. Want to get to something that's obviously been impacted by the transfer portal. You have some exciting additions up front along the offensive line, but one guy that seemed to really stand out in your bowl game effort against Arkansas was up front along the offensive line, and that was in Jacob Ponton, a guy that you've mentioned several times before as someone that internally, is viewed as having a very, very bright future. Had Brian and Zach both asking sort of about expectations with Ponton, expectations for the offensive line in general. Zach saying, do y'all think Ponton has any shot of competing for a starting spot next season, even with the transfers possibly added? What did you think about the way that he finished the year in our first, I guess, like extended look at him, really, at least that I can recall? And could he work his way in, even with all the big time investment you've made up there?
He did look good. I think his problem is he's about 285 pounds, and that's his biggest issue. That's why I don't think there was anybody that thought we're ready to hand over the reins to one of these guys, even as a redshirt freshman next year, which is what I guess what people are asking about. I just don't know if it's. I mean, typically, and think about who's coaching these guys. Clay McGuire was playing with and then coached or was a part of some of the best offensive lines in the last 20, 25 years here. And he knows that most of those guys, that they were all, redshirt juniors, seniors. Heck, one of those years when Rylan Reed, he was 27, 28 years old. and that's the way it's supposed to be, is you don't really want to, unless they're just a freak. And we've highlighted some of those true freshmen that have come in here. And even then, it's a bit sketchy at the start. And you remember them as either pros or the way that they were at the tail end. But it's just not in the cards to try to put anybody in there unless you're at least a redshirt sophomore. And heck, if you could do it, junior. But the rules have changed and all those things. So it's not a knock on him. And he'll be in the mix and competing. And he's certainly, but I mean, would I think that he's in line to start or would compete to start? That would surprise me a bit. It's not a knock on him, but it's based on what you've brought in. And if he was about 40 pounds heavier or 30 pounds heavier, I think maybe you would feel, but he's still a kid and with a ton of upside. So it's actually good news that you may not go, okay, you got to tap him on the shoulder and say, okay, hey, it's your, because I think the worry is against bigger guys, man, you can just get bullied. You get bull rushed and you just don't have the weight to hold up.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And definitely somebody that's exciting as far as the future goes. So be curious to see maybe when he can break through, but there's Chris lays it out for you, what he's going to have to do in order to do so. Appreciate that question. This question from Leah asking about football assistant coaches. And since the context clues tell us what the offensive situation looks like, I think a lot of this Chris, as far as focusing on the staff, even in one of our recent conversations, has to do with the defensive side of things. Leah was asking about, have assistant coaches' seats become hotter after the bowl game? Could we consider them, hot seats defensively? Is it overstated to, act like that even had any impact? Or what do you make of the situation there? Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle all the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And right now, new customers can bet only $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and a whole lot more, all in one place. So when you get a hunch, a gut instinct in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a gut feeling again, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Have assistant coaches' seats become hotter after the bowl game? Could we consider them, hot seats defensively? Is it overstated to, act like that even had any impact? Or what do you make of the situation there?
Man, I don't think so. I think Coach Wood will have an opportunity. He wasn't even at the bowl game, and I think he was at a lot of the practices and all these things. But the bowl game was just disjointed in many ways, as we've talked about, and I don't know if you base a lot of, I don't know if anybody's like in line to be, to take over or anything like that based on maybe some of what we saw. Who knows? That's up to Joey and Coach Wood and those guys. But Coach Wood will have a chance to put his stamp on this thing, put people in the places that he wants to. And then you'll kind of go from there, and then you'll start to judge it and all those things. But the guy you're bringing in here, he's coached really good defense for several years in a row. He's very young. I think he's going to add a lot of energy, and he's going to have a lot of new pieces. Basically, a brand new starting defensive line / secondary to go with this linebacker group that will return. And so it'll look a lot different whenever we resume here in the spring.
And check out our episode this week where we discussed kind of the situation more broadly there with the coaching staff. And again, more specifically on the defensive side of the football, if you haven't seen it so far. Appreciate that question. This one from Drew. With the current landscape of college football, will we ever see a career record broken again? What do you think, man? With so much movement, is it going to make it tough for some of those career numbers to reach the heights they have once upon a time?
Yeah, probably. I think those will be more. Those will be rare. And heck, man, you're just going to be able to, on one hand, like kind of talk about the certain guys that started with your team and then make it all the way to the end. Yeah. That's why the Taj Brookses this year, the Mason Tharps, the Caleb Rogers, Jackson Knotts. I'm just trying to think. I'm probably going to forget somebody. But there was a core group of guys that started here and finished here. And it's like, golly, I mean, there's just not many of you. And then to try to set a career record and all those things. I like look at the NFL, like what's going on with them this week. And Eric Dickerson, former SMU player, set the single season record for rushing in the NFL, and all this talk about Saquon Barkley for the Eagles, and they're going to sit him down. And then, and two, when you look at a career record or a season record, it's like, well, he's playing 17 games. His so-and-so played in 16, but now we're going to rest guys, so he's not going to break it. I just think that some of the records and all these things, it be based on the rules and the way that everything has changed at all levels in all sports. You have the steroid era in baseball. So much of that is like so muddied. But specific to our conversation for college and career records, yeah, I mean, Taj is, and think about it. Like, when are you going to see anybody be at the same place? But one, it would take a style of offense that would allow somebody to break a passing or rushing or whatever. True. So
yeah, true. And those things change with the win sometimes. All right, appreciate that question. This one from Justin and let's see here, Jonathan, both asking about thoughts on the college football playoff. They'd like to hear some thoughts on the playoff so far, more specifically on what Jonathan described as pesky Arizona State. Justin asking about the Arizona State-Texas game. Did y'all feel the no call was targeting, or did they get it right? And do you think that possibly the Big 12 gained a little respect via the effort from Arizona State?
I am glad that Arizona State played really well. I did not want to see them get boat raced or anything like that. One,
they kind of were for 3.5 quarters, by the way.
Right. And so I'm clear, there are certain institutions I wouldn't have cared if it made the Big 12 look bad or not. If they'd have gotten boat raced, I would have been like, yeah, go whoever.
Of course.
Although it was painful for me in any way to root for Texas, and I did not and would not unless it was, you could have inserted a couple of in-state institutions in there, and if Texas would have handled them, I would have been like, not too upset about it. Whatever, moving on. But I was glad that I guess you at some level earn respect. People can't point to, hey, didn't belong, didn't deserve this, didn't deserve that. They had a bye. They were 2-touchdown underdog or so. It's going to end up being one of the best playoff games, certainly in this version of it, and probably will be one of the best playoff games for a long time, because it's why you keep playing. It's why it ain't over till it's over. All the stuff that we all hear, because and I wish they wouldn't have blitzed and shown it so early on a 4th and 13 that equaled like a 28-yard touchdown pass. That's the one play that I'm sure if you could point to it, they'd love to have back. Was it targeting? I thought absolutely. I get so frustrated at somebody trying to lay out the letter of the law and the way the rule is written and intent and all that. Nobody knows what they're talking about. I don't care if there's somebody that's being paid by one of the media networks that is a former official. You don't know what you're talking about. The announcers don't know what they're talking about. The coaches don't know what they're talking about. The players don't know what they're talking about. Those of us that are sitting here trying to make sense of it don't know what we're talking about, because nobody understands the rule. And the rule is applied differently. Because if you want to tell me that wasn't targeting, because it says right here, intent and launch and crown and all this BS that you want to try to give me, then apply it to, the game that I watched, or some of the, and that's the problem, is nobody knows what they're doing, and it's sad. And then nobody has to answer for it. But I mean, it absolutely cost the Sun Devils. But again, don't throw an interception in overtime. Don't call inside runs when you're just getting it handed to you on short yardage situations near the goal line earlier in the game, and then have to settle for a field goal or turn it over on downs. Now they got a safety like a play later, but there's all that
drives,
stuff.
Man, their red zone trips were excruciating for the majority of the game.
Yeah. So that's why I'm never a blame the officials guy. But the targeting thing drives me crazy. Anybody trying to explain it to me, shut up. I don't want to hear what you have to say, because it's not applied.
I mean, that's the road we paved for ourselves by even bringing in something so subjective to this type of thing. And look, football is a violent game, used to be a violent game at least, and trying to kind of legislate that and nip and tuck violent moments here or there has always been a fool's errand. So I hate in general that we even know such a word as targeting as it relates to football. What do you think you're doing when you're making a tackle? You're targeting the son of a buck every time. But I mean, heck,
I don't. Their top one of their starting safeties gets popped in the Big 12 title game. This is the first half.
Yeah,
and that was his hit wasn't anywhere near as bad as like.
And he had a massive impact when he finally returned.
Yes,
way to go, Big 12. Yeah. It's so frustrating and it's so stupid. And maybe eventually we'll just be watching kids play football video games instead of any of this, because we don't know what any of it means as far as how violent is too violent.
But as far as the playoffs go,
hey, and by the way, just a general welcome to the land of the Longhorn. All right, they're gonna job you. You're gonna get jobbed. They're gonna find a way to job you. And I'm just glad everybody gets to share that experience beyond the borders of the 806 or the state of Texas.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see when they play Ohio State and Texas together, because both of those programs benefit greatly from
favored sons.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
You will more than likely get a tweak to the seeding next year. It's going to stay at 12 teams next year, if that's what somebody, I think they were asking here on just the thoughts on the playoff and maybe earning respect. They may tweak this. That they you float this out there with the idea that there's talk and all these things. Again, I'm going to maintain until somebody just says, okay, we've officially stamped it. This isn't going to happen, but it's going to expand to at least 14 after this next year. Just more access. I think that, when we're sitting there in May and June and all these, you're going to probably get more talk about it. I think you'll see more chatter about more automatic bids. Remember the deal about,
Oh yeah.
SEC gets 4, ACC gets 2, Big 12 gets 2, Big 10 gets 4. And again, I will tell you, I don't hate it. I just think that at some level that's better than what you may get. And if you're guaranteeing me 2, I'll take my chances. I will. And it doesn't mean that I'm right. I'm just saying I'm trying to look at reality of who's running this deal, because there are rules in place now, unfortunately, that the Big Ten and the SEC have more say-so than everybody else does. And if they're willing to give you an extra automatic bid, I'll say, yes, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much. We'll take it.
He who has the gold makes the rules, and
Yep.
that's nothing
Bingo.
new here.
Yep,
That's nothing new.
That's right.
BYU has had and still has, maybe more demonstrably now, the biggest gripe in the nation. I'll maintain that this year.
Fair.
I think they're right there on that line and should have been in. Should have been in instead of a group of 5 champion. Just another example, like, give me a freaking break. We're going to continue to reserve this type of landscape or real estate for these guys in a playoff. Yeah, right. Not until it's like 35. But a bye for a team that's had to stare at somebody with a pulse less than a handful of times across the field all year. Just another example of it, but we'll be right back here. And it's the same with the Big 12 respect. They didn't get any respect. Give me a break. These voters and those who impact these things will be swooning over logos once again next year. And sorry, Miami's, Iowa State's. I mean, you get the idea. I don't know if you saw some of the video from that ball game as far as how ESPN was promoting the contest, but it wasn't exactly an Iowa State shoe shine affair. I mean, they were just glowing, and it's Miami, Florida. And I think that's why the Big 12 continuously will be overlooked, is because they will be, not for lack of effort or cleverness or want to, but they will be the least marketed league in the nation. You don't have Miami in your stable. You have Ames, and you got Manhattan, and you got the open. It's just the way it is. But maybe you will chip away at this and prove some things on the field, because I do think it is just a matter of marketing. It's actually not a matter of the reality of the football situations. But thank God it is an era of an expanded playoff, because now you will have more opportunity than ever to prove on the field that it is actually maybe a little bit more similar than what you would imagine just watching ESPN and the like.
We have truck stops.
That's right.
That's what we have. Yeah. What is that?
Flying J Posse, mount up.
That's right. Wasn't that it's a truck stop league.
But
man.
You get what I'm saying. I mean,
no doubt.
Perception is reality, but perception is crafted and manipulated, certainly that way in the world of college sports. All right. Thank you for those questions. Got a couple of hoops questions I wanted to get to as well. Cameron asking, just after watching this last basketball game, at any point are we considering Kevin Overton in the starting lineup, maybe in place of Kerwin Walton? What do you think of that dynamic? We talked a little bit about Walton on the last episode. Any adjustment, whether it's involving Overton or not, do you think we could be in for any adjustments moving forward? First, today's episode brought to you by Rocket Money. And if you're lost in the subscription whirlwind, listen up. If you're like me, you've had a few subscriptions you didn't even realize you were still paying on. And that's where Rocket Money comes in, making it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and even helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit in 2025. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, the subscription tracker is a must-have. Cancel services you're not using anymore and save a ton. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Just go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. You think we could be in for any adjustments moving forward?
I think everything's on the table. I'm not going to be surprised if at some point Christian Anderson is a starter, if Kevin Overton is a starter, if at some point you feel like, hey, we need to go big here, and you start Federico and JT in the same lineup with D5 at the 3. I mean, I would think everything's on the table. And when you lose, that's what happens. I mean, it's you try to, nothing needs to stay the same, and something's got to change. But this is more than just starting a lineup type stuff. This is more get people's attention. This is more we need a better sense of urgency every night out, because I think with a 20-game schedule and no off times now, okay, those little gaps are over. It's really about what coach can get his guys playing hard for 2.5 months. And that's hard to do. I mean, we see it in football. It just gets you sometimes. Human nature sets in, weird circumstances set in, game times set in, weird travel sets in. I mean, all these things that you just can't necessarily control. And it's like, well, I mean, because what's, like the crazy thing is about like sports, right, is that West Virginia, you lost at home. We glossed over the West Virginia getting their first ever win in Lawrence, Kansas, at Allen Fieldhouse. They had plane trouble. They show up at 2 a.m. in Lawrence the day of the game. Technically, they're without 2 starters, including their best player, the head coach's son, and they go in and then beat Kansas, who was preseason number 1, by 10 in Lawrence. Makes no sense. Sometimes circumstances get you, but I guarantee you, like Bill Self and Coach McCaslin and some of the other folks are like, fellas, told you, like you better be ready every night. I mean, this league will get you, and now it's your turn to try to go sneak up on somebody and and like play harder than the next guy, and all that stuff. Yeah. And in both cases, both road teams built a big enough of a lead to where it wasn't some call at the end that screws you or whatever. When you go win a road game in this league, you better go win it. And now it's Grant's turn to kind of turn the volume up with his guys. But there'll be more, but it's just difficult. So maybe some starting lineups change, but sense of urgency certainly needs to change.
Appreciate that question. Andrea asking, is physicality going to be a problem moving forward? Would you say we're considered a small front court compared to the rest of the Big 12?
Yeah, you're smaller overall in many ways. Either it's shorter or slight. I mean, there's going to be some of that. Certainly, one is because the league that you're playing in. I mean, I worry when and I said this, like when you play like an A&M type team that just wants to. Now UCF is similar, veteran point guard that just wants to bully you. And what's Houston going to be like? I mean, God dang. So I think, there's some matchup concerns for you, certainly. And I hoped it wouldn't quite be as pronounced, but we'll see. Grant's a really good coach, and I think they've got plenty of time to tweak and morph and all that. But at the end of the day, you kind of are what you are from that standpoint on the physical part.
Can't coach them to grow necessarily.
No, and or get in the weight room, or
that's going to take some time.
Yeah.
Jason's asking, are we beginning to temper expectations for this team as it relates to the tournament? Just making it.
Oh, I think that's way too early. I told you that if you get through these first 3 games and you're at 2-1, you feel good. And man, maybe you could have gotten to 3-0 and you'd be like, whoa. But, obviously starting out 0-1, now at this point, you're going to need to go win at least one of these road games, because I don't want to stare at 0-3 coming back and with Iowa State staring me in the face. And at that point, you may go, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to hurry. But there's a long ways to go. And somebody's going to get into this deal at 8-12. 9-11, all that in the league. So let's just, we'll slow down a bit and just see kind of what the next couple of weeks have. But if you get a third of the way through this deal, and it's, at some point there will be like a too big of a hole to overcome, kind of deal, or you'll have to go like win the Big 12 tournament or whatever. But you're far from that.
Michael asking this question: is there the same commitment money-wise to the basketball program as to the football program to sign the very high-level targets? I know there's some crossover in support, but also seems like there's different guys involved from sport to sport sometimes too.
Yes, there. All that is true, but there will be a window here to where you can kind of last chance. And again, unless things change, there will be a window here in early April. Like, and it'll need to happen fairly quickly to where you can still take advantage of the previous set of rules, or I should say the current set of rules, to where you can make some things happen. And the Matador Club can be involved in all those things, and until you have to start doing the revenue sharing thing. As far as well-funded, that I think that's to be determined. That's also, I would say that they are very well-funded, though. It depends on what you're comparing it to, and I don't really know. It's a bit difficult to try to nail down, like, again, for all the reasons that we talked about with football, budget or quote unquote budget and pencil. That's always a moving target. It's prospect or player specific, or it can always get tweaked or adjusted depending on what it needs to be tweaked or adjusted. And but you'll be able to do some damage there if you want to. Because, I mean, think about it. Like, you may have a say, you know what, a lot of this budget that we got, hey, D5, would you please come back? You know, like, I mean, that you may be trying to keep one of your main guys here. And then Federico, who you thought was going to be out the door, I think you can keep him now. I mean, so there's things that are always changing. But, yeah, you've got money to spend for sure.
All right. Appreciate that question. This one from Mark, back to the football program, asking if there are JUCO guys on the radar for Coach McGuire. And he also asked, are JUCO players looked at differently with everyone going to the transfer portal, maybe not as relevant as they used to be?
Junior college football in general is not near what it used to be. It's not near as well funded. It's not as prevalent. It kind of was much like high school recruiting and largely skipped over. Some junior college programs just kind of shut down. But there are still some prominent ones and players that come from that level and all that. But I don't think it's you just go to where the players are. And if there happens to be one that you think can help you, but it's that part of our sport has changed a great deal over the last 10 years, but really it's changed really since COVID and since the rules changes and all these things. I don't think this new rule of a junior college player, I mean, that doesn't affect its standing or anything, I don't think, because some people are saying, man, if this rule stays in place, I'll just use the junior college as like a prep school. I'll like sign extra guys and stash them there, because we'll still get them and they can go lift weights and eat and kind of grow up and get some reps in and all that at a junior college. I'll just use it in that way. So I don't know where that will end up, but that's what a lot of the chatter has been.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about it working out that way, but they always find an edge right somewhere. Somebody's going to find it.
Yep.
No doubt about that. All right. Thank you for that question. Fernando asking, does this postseason's football portal strategy signal doubts in the high school recruiting methods and or results?
No, I just think it signifies lack of patience from people like Fernando that are asking these questions, from people like you that sit and talk about it every day. Everybody is ready to win and win right now.
Yeah.
That's you don't have time to wait, because other people aren't waiting. Other people are trying to attack and being aggressive and trying to speed their processes up and all these things. You're trying to compete. You're trying to compete right now. I mean, you're trying to compete yesterday. And that's what, so you just don't, it's not like it used to be, where you stash kids and redshirt them all. And then, man, in some years, this will be a lot of fun. I mean, you just don't, it's about right now. And that's the way it's going to be. And yes, you need to be patient with some players and classes and all this stuff, but you're trying to speed that up. So you're trying to, that's why I get really excited about the portal additions that you bring in that have 2 or 3 years to play, because one, they've already checked a lot of the boxes, and you're like, okay, you've already done some stuff. You're already pretty good, but I get to keep you around here. I mean, it's like that's what stings so much, and we're going to have the same conversation next year with some of these guys that come in like Jalen Conyers did this year. I'm like, God dang, I just got to know you. You were so good, and I'm saying goodbye. That sucks. And there'll be plenty of these guys that are just like that. But that's why the handful of that you get to keep here, that's what's a lot of fun too. So, but yeah, it's not. You're just trying to play good football. You're trying to put a really good product on the field. And as a fan, as a season ticket holder, as somebody with interest that watches and partakes in the show, you should want that. That's the expectation. And we all need to like tap the brakes a little bit, and there need to be patience. And like, you've never won championships around here. I mean, Calvin, I'll put this in perspective. I look at you mentioned BYU got hosed. Iowa State had an 11-win season. BYU had an 11-win season. I mean, think about how many times you've done that. I mean, it's extremely, extremely rare in the last 50, 60, 70 years, whatever it is. And you know what they had to show for it? An Alamo Bowl win, okay, and a Pop-Tart Bowl win. So I could sit here, and if I told you right now, man, you're going to win 11 games next year, you and I would probably go, I'll take it. I don't know what that means, but there's a chance you could be really good. You could have a year like you haven't had since 2008 and since 73 and all the stuff, and it's still not quite be good enough. You know, that's just how hard this stuff is. But you're trying to go, man. The dice are in your hands, and you're rolling them. And so screw it. You know, let's see what it gets you.
All righty, appreciate that question. A couple more. Casey asks about any further update on Chapman Lewis yet.
No, I don't know if they're going to tell you anything. I just don't think it's good. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, I don't think it's good. I mean, you know, for all the things that I said in the last one, we start talking to family members and all that, and and then you know, does that factor into if it is serious and say it's a knee issue and that's a 8 to 9 month issue? Does that alter your thought process on, okay, maybe we need a little bit more in the portal, or maybe somebody that was going to get in the portal that was on your team goes, man, I have a better chance to play. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. All those questions are fair to ask aloud.
Sally asking, when are new portal players on campus and/or starting school?
Oh, they will. Some of them are already here. Some of them will. And by the way, we had people asking about like your early enrollee freshmen. Why can't they practice? Can they? You had the two receivers that are in town. Michael Deaver, Leighton Stone, the Friendship, and the Lubbock Cooper. They participated in a handful of bowl practices. They suited up for the game. They weren't not allowed to play, but I just wanted to throw that out there to you. But all these portal guys, they should all be. First team meeting is, I think, January the 14th. They should be going through their medical stuff and enrolling in classes and all the business and everything, like by days before that. But they should all be here. Yes.
Okay. All right. And big finish. Uno mas from Jack. In the former landscape, it was considered to be poor taste to criticize student athletes. Now that they are paid athletes, do you think it's okay to openly criticize them? Maybe in a way that people didn't before.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell anybody what is okay, what's not okay. I would just say that I think you'll like one. I just think some people that get on social media platforms and look, you and I get criticized sometimes. It happens. We're in the public eye and everything. I think going after a kid with some fake username or not your real name is a weird look to me. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but people do, right? I'm like, I guess do you? Yeah, they do. I think that's and the coaches certainly get heavily criticized, and you sign up for some of that. I do think that'll be a little bit more prevalent, or there'll be more gloves off with some of this treatment, especially with people that didn't start out here. Like I just think that the fan is going to look at Taj Brooks differently than they look at the 1-year guy that just showed up.
Yeah.
I just think that's how it's going to go. I think there's a soft spot for a Caleb Rogers, or, I think about some of those basketball teams. Like you're looking at, I view Keenan Evans differently than I view Matt Mooney. I just do. Sorry. I mean, I just like, if you're like a quote unquote hired gun, that's not necessarily fair, but that's kind of what is happening here. Then versus a homegrown, this is why I'll look at Barron differently, and some of these things than if you were to bring a quarterback in here like Ohio State brought in like Will Howard, or Oregon brought in Dylan Gabriel. That's how I would view it. But I think you'll see a little more not kid gloves or gloves off thought process with a lot of people out there, because there is big dollars being earned.
Sure. I think it remains the same as it was previously, in that respectful criticism or delivering your perspective was fine then, is fine now. It's not like they were in Pampers at a daycare center before revenue sharing. Right. I mean, they were getting something to the tune of a scholarship and everything that comes with all of the support system that is attached to that. So I think that type of respectful, common sense, civil, normal person behavior criticism is fine. Now, the burners and all of that good stuff, acting psychotically on social media, I don't know when that's ever fine. So if that's new to you and you got to rein it in now, or maybe you're letting it loose, you're throttled down, best of luck to you. All right, Chris, appreciate all the insights and the answers, man. And thank you to the Matador Mob for kicking the questions our way. If you're interested in becoming a Matador Mobster, that's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text and straight to your phone. Hit the show notes, find the link for a free 14-day trial. Enjoyed it as always, Chris. Enjoy some hoops on the road coming up, my man. You're two-stepping in Utah, so outside of God's country for a little while, man. Safe travels.
I will enjoy some Salt Lake mountain air, and hopefully it's hopefully it's a good trip, but it's going to be a lengthy one. So we'll see kind of what happens. But hopefully next time I talk to you when we're back in the lovely state of Texas, we'll be in a better spot.
That'd be right. Richer in basketball wins, just for starters. All right. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks again for being out there. Special shout out to those everydayers who we can count on always riding along. Make sure you get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And thanks for being there. And we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.